Meeting to order. I'll ask for an adoption of the agenda of September 22nd, 2020. Councillor Bevins. All those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. And item number C, adoption of previous minutes of the September 8th, 2020 Committee of the Whole. Anyone seen any concerns, questions? Okay. Councillor Wilkinson. All those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. And item number D is delegation from the Edson and District Public Library, and they will be zooming in, I presume. Okay. Are you on? Can you hear us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
If you don't mind, can I get you to state your name to us, please?
It's Michael Baird from the Edson District Public Library.
Okay, and I think because myself inclusive, I don't know if you are, so we'll do a round table and introduce us. You can see us on the screen.
Yes, I can.
Okay, I'll start with myself, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Chenard, and
Councillor Janet Wilkinson.
Councillor Troy Sorensen.
Councillor Griswold.
Trevor Bevan.
Jackie Curry.
Mayor Kevin Zahara.
okay, welcome. Look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Sorry, I think the council was muted during the agenda and I don't have a copy. I don't know. Are you waiting for my presentation now?
Yes, we are ready for your presentation.
Okay. Thank you, council, for giving me the time to speak to you today. We have sent a letter requesting reinstatement of some of the funds that were removed at the start of the COVID situation. As you may remember, there was 30.3% of our funding was removed, $100,000. We have endeavored to reduce our costs as much as possible. However, that reduction was made with the assumption that we would not reopen until January. And as you're aware, we did reopen August 4th. And starting next week, we actually have, the board has voted to go to full hours, September 28th until the end of the year. So we are requesting that 44,000 be reinstated of that 100,000 that was originally cut. That works out to 13% of our original operating requisition that was approved by town council, and we feel that is appropriate and in line with the other institutions that the town has been looking after, the pool and the arena. We are requesting that money, knowing that it is not the full amount of our operating deficit. We understand that the town would seek to only reimburse us for their portion of our shortfall and let the county be responsible for its own. Our actual deficit for the year, running at full operating hours, is $70,627. We are requesting only 44,000. We believe we can arrange for the other by fiscal responsibility and perhaps dealing with some of our operating reserve to make up the shortfall. We have cut expenses as much as possible, including over 44,000 cut from wages for this fiscal year. The operating reserve will be utilized by the board. However, we only have some reserves that can be utilized. Of course, we do not operate as a typical nonprofit that has zero reserves at the end of the year. We have to budget for telecom replacement, computer replacement, and some of the reserves are, of course, spoken for because they are donations and not residual funds from previous years. I will not take up much of your time tonight, hopefully. I will go over the county portion of our total shortfall would be 31% of 21,000. If we take that off of the total shortfall 70, that leaves 48,000 that we will still be short. If the town can see it within its wisdom to return the 44 we've asked for, that leaves us funds that we can comfortably make up. Is there endeavoring to be short? I won't go into any more detail unless there are specific questions, and I'm happy to answer any of those questions from council.
Okay, thank you. I'll open up to council if they have questions. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Michael. Welcome to our community. We're very happy to see you as a part of our library and working with Councillor Byer on the board. And I know the board through Councillor Byer has worked very hard to reduce operating expenses. From my perspective, I have no concern with reinstating some of this money with the understanding that the board is going to continue to try to find efficiencies, and they're going to rely a little bit on the reserves as well. I think that everybody working together through this and using our financial means is appropriate, and I thank you for your work and the board's work on this.
Councillor Curry.
Thank you. I think you did just clarify, so you guys will be going back to full-time hours?
Yes, on the 16th, the library board voted to return to full hours. That vote was made with the full knowledge that these funds may not be reinstated. So it was a risky move for the board. But starting on the 28th, we are Monday to Friday, 10 to 8 p.m. and Saturdays noon to 5 p.m.
Yeah, go ahead, follow up.
Then I would 100% support reinstating this. When we had taken this back, we had that conversation that reinstatement would have to be on the table if we went back, didn't go till the end of January. And I myself have had numerous people in the community comment to me on the hours and wishing for the hours to be back to normal. So I'm really excited to see that happen. And I do appreciate all that you guys have done to be fiscally responsible. So thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Through the chair, I was just wondering, with the COVID restrictions, will you be having the children come in after school again, where you seem to get quite a few children in the building?
Yes, we will. Part of our desire to return to full hours is the acknowledgement that, after school, there is very few places for children to go, and we are one of those primary places. And particularly as the weather gets colder, we want to be open. We do have restrictions on occupancy limits still because of the COVID-19. However, we have expanded those occupancy limits from our original opening in August to where we can have 16 people comfortably in the space in addition to staff. So we will be welcoming those students back in and trying to find additional ways to accommodate them. We do have community use rooms that are not booked currently at the moment, so there is the potential to open those up as well for additional space for kids to go and to offer programming. Our programming hasn't gone into full swing yet because of the cohort restrictions for programming with kids. However, we do see programming coming back in October, seniors teas and programming for children, possibility of game nights with restrictions on how many people at a table and keeping families together, that sort of thing.
Councillor Beck.
Through the chair, if you get more children coming that you can put into the library, will you put a time limit on the kids that are in there so the other kids are able to get in?
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear the question.
I asked if you had more kids coming to the library than what you can put in there. You got kids outside wanting to get in. Will there be a time limit on how long the kids in there will stay so you can accommodate all the other children?
And that's what we'll be looking at. We have the community use room and the arts room that is not being utilized right now. And that would allow us to more than double what we can have in the library comfortably at the current time. So it would be a matter of staffing those rooms, making sure we had someone to monitor them. And that would open up additional spaces for children to come in, particularly when it's cold. So.
Excuse me, Michael, what the question was, would you be putting a time limit on the children that are in the library? Like if you get to capacity, would you be putting a time?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't hear the time limit part of the question. It is not something we have reached a firm decision on at the moment. Currently, we have not reached capacity more than a few times. So we aren't limiting time. We are limiting time on computers to 45 minutes because that allows us to clean in between usage, but we're not currently limiting time within the library. If it became a real issue that some were there for several hours and it was preventing others from coming in, then we might have to look at some kind of rotation, but it's a question we'll have to cross once we reach that if we're exceeding our occupancy.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Yeah, through the chair on Councillor Bevan's question there, like at our other facilities like the pool, they have to pre-book if they're going to be there, and they are limited for a certain amount of time for lane swim and public swim. And again, staffing issues, because it's great to open up places, but you have to pay staff whether people are there or not. So it's an expense, definitely.
Go ahead.
I think we're venturing into operational matters that really are no concern to this council, with all due respect.
Well, I'm sorry, the
How
money
they-
is, the money is.
Yeah, the money is, but how they operate for how much time and how they fit the patrons in is really a library board and library administration question. And so I just caution that we don't get too caught up in those details.
Actually, thank you for that
Well,
clarification.
through the chair, I just want to
Yeah,
ask, the
go ahead.
library isn't run as a town facility at all there. They're a separate entity, so they wouldn't follow the same rules as what the pool does, et cetera.
That's correct. The library, through the chair, the library board is run through the library board and independent of the town in terms of its operational considerations.
Okay, so, all right.
Okay, the last question, is anyone else in the room have a concern about the funding? Go ahead, Councillor Byer.
The chair to Mr. Baird, thanks for your presentation. I'm supportive of reinstating funding, and I appreciate all the work you've done to help the board achieve their reducing the spending.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Swanson.
Through the chair to council and administration, I'm in support of this request.
Okay, anyone else have any questions? My one comment, I am in support because we are fully aware of what was stated in the room about reinstatement. You're going to make a presentation to the county as well. Did I hear that right? Like for the county portion, you're going to make a presentation to them as well?
Yes, we will be presenting to the county as well. Because of course they did reduce their funding as well. So we will be presenting to the county, and non-specific to this report, we will also be doing a year-end report to council as well. So.
Okay. Anyone else?
Perhaps
Yeah,
if I can just
go ahead.
So I was just taking a look at the assuming reinstatement, it seems that there's support from council, and that funding would be returned from the COVID reserve. I think was taking a look at it before to just give you an update on what to.
Okay, go ahead, Sarah.
Just looking at the things that we've already booked and removed the past year. So we have around 7.5 to 800,000 within the next phase.
Okay, if there's no other concerns, thank you, Michael. And I have not met you personally, but I look forward to the opportunity, but thank you. Okay, we're moving on. There's no E1, no E2, E3 corporate services, Fortis Alberta franchise fees. Who will be presenting that?
Good evening. This franchise fee is similar to the actual franchise fee, but through Fortis. Looking for guidance on how council would like to apply, if they would like to change the fee, or what methodology take on this one. Note that we have heard about wanting to create a policy. Actually, we'll bring that in the new year before the next, certainly before the next franchise is reset. Yeah, just looking to see where council would like to have this reset.
Okay, Councillor Sorensen and Councillor Bach.
Through the chair to council, I recommend that we we reduce the rate from 5 to 4.9%, which would give a small, that would maintain our revenues from last year. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bach.
Through the chair to council and administration, I'm in favor of maintaining with a small inflationary increase. I don't know what inflation is at these days or how you are calculating it. Using the municipal inflation index. So whatever that percentage is to not lose their dollar values.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on this? Okay, then I will comment. Let's stay with the 5. I like pretty straightforward numbers.
The current rate, the chair, is 4.7.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. Maintain 4.7 and 5 would be the increase. So I was just looking at the other ones. It was 555. So I figured because it says 2017 5, so 19, so we're in 20. So yes, we're the upside down year, so it's 4.7. So maintain.
As far as, sorry, just as a comment, 4.75 would increase that revenue to 370, which then would suppose account for a slight increase in inflationary amount. So we can stick that, we stick the same rate, it would decrease the amount of revenue.
Okay. Anyone else have a comment on this, a question? Councillor.
Sorry, I'm confused a little bit here. It was 5% last year and our revenue was 374, 220.
It was 4.75.
Yes.
For
Oh,
this year.
sorry, for 20. Okay,
For
sorry.
2020, which is
Sorry, I'm
the
looking
current
at
year,
29. So we went down last year.
from 5 to 4.75.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And as Mr. Passy was suggesting there, in terms of the inflationary rate, if you look at the estimates, they're estimating a slight increase in the revenue there. And Mr. Passy suggesting that we're maintaining at 4.75 may also account for a slight inflationary effect. That was suggested by Councilor Meyer.
Okay, now that, oh, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
I'm fine leaving it at 4.75 this year.
Councillor Bevins.
I have the same thing, leave it at 4.75.
Okay, now that I have my glasses on, clarification, it says the Gas Utility Act, does that just cover all of them? It says legislated the Municipal Government Act, gas utility, so gas covers gas and power.
I would have to look into that. Mr.
Okay,
Chair, as I would,
go ahead.
I think I'm pretty confident to say without looking into it that the Gas Utilities Act references
Okay,
those natural gas utilities and those related activities.
I was just clarifying because now I can see the numbers. Okay, any other concerns on this? Do you have enough information from us to move forward?
I believe so.
Okay.
I'll bring it back to the next
Oh,
meeting.
Councillor
I would
Sorensen.
like someone to summarize what they heard.
Okay, summarize her. Okay, Councillor Bevins, I'll go around the room. What?
I think, Mr. Chair, that the majority were comfortable at 4.75.
Okay.
At this point, the administration would bring it back with a recommendation for maintaining the franchise fee at 4.75. Mr. Passy, would you mind what you heard? That's what I've heard.
Do you have any questions answered? Okay, if no other concerns, we can move on. Thank you for your presentation. I believe you got your feedback. Okay, and then moving on to E4, Community Protective Services, Griffiths Park Center, who's speaking to that. Okay, thank you.
some of the great work that my team has been doing over the last couple of months. As you're very aware, through the documents that I provided you, we've gone through this project with a fine-tooth comb. We've come up with a few different approaches that we may want to take. And quite frankly, our community has been given a lot of lemons lately, and we're just really doing what we can to try to make lemonade with that. So I have a very, very small presentation here that we'll just go quickly through. And please feel free to stop me and ask questions. And we're going to really focus tonight, or what I'm really seeking your feedback on is the project itself, the building the project. I did give you a lot of information about the programs and what we're hoping to do, but that it's really not the topic of conversation tonight. I just really need some forward direction on this building to move forward with it, if so, in what. So always the driving force between everything that we do is one of council's priorities, the vibrancy of the community. It's typically the only one that we write down when we look at what our team is up to and what we're really striving for. And as I said, the lemons that we've been having, the family center being closed down, lots of currently funding, the Boys and Girls Club, loss of that service in our community. And so what we're really looking to do is just create this community space where we can provide a variety of programming, social services, arts, culture, rec, special events, everything at one hub, FCSS, the tax clinic, like you name it, we're hoping to do it out of that space. And we're just really seeking this opportunity that has come from some unfortunate events and trying to do the best we can for community with it. So a big part of the scenarios that I presented that we can go through in a minute is moving the community development staff actually into the building with fully functional offices where they can be on site, make them far more efficient, make them community facing and accessible to everyone to come and go and really create that sense of community that we've been after for several years with the abundant communities model that we've been working towards. Here's a few pictures of the current state of the building. It's, unfortunately, I think financial stressors have made it difficult for the club and the town to maintain the space very well. And the bottom right pictures, those are of the gym that, it's functional, but one of the downfalls, I guess, is the gym floor is it's slippery and not ideal for seniors and that sort of thing for doing activities. The washroom that you can see there with the orange, that one would be switched into an accessible washroom, fully accessible with automatic openers and whatnot. We did have occupational therapists and a better use of the building with us to say, what do we need to meet standards? But not only that, what do we need to make this space truly accessible for people with a variety of different abilities. So, of course, the cost, the biggest downfall, I guess, to any sort of project is the cost. The first scenario, if I did go into further detail in the report that I guess that you guys all had a chance to look at. What we felt in scenario one was the most important things that we thought would give our team the opportunity to function very well there as a community center. The staff would be in there, the IT would be done properly, security would be in place, would be fully accessible. And so all the doors would have the accessibility, not just the first doors that get you in the space. And obviously the one accessible washer is really important. The flooring, not only slippery and hasn't been washed and maintained, so it actually takes a great deal to kind of repair and bring it back to life. And the heating and cooling system is about 21 years old, and maintenance staff have said, obviously in its day it was inefficient. At this point, really not efficient at all. So that's one thing that we would definitely like to upgrade. In terms of furniture and fixtures, we do have a lot of things that we brought over from the family center that are currently being stored there. But some of the things that we're definitely missing when we look at food furnishing the space is the main kind of entrance area. We would like to have more of a lobby type lounge type situation where people can come in, sit down, have a coffee, you know, meet and coordinate, that sort of thing. And also have, you know, different information available for them. Just make it a true community space that they can come and they go and feel at home. So, scenario 2, that includes everything from scenario 1. And in addition, we would redo the gym floor and the acoustic tiles in the gym, and lighting, the various doors in the building would be changed, and some small ceiling upgrades, not much required there, just some ceiling tiles, outdoor awnings just to give it that community feel, the sun out a bit. Now, in this one too, this would allow us basically everything would be redone, and moving forward, there would be very little required after that. But at the same time, the reason that we didn't put the gym in the first scenario is because we've been really actively seeking grants, whether it be government, local, some of our community partners. We feel like a community gym would be something that, you know, maybe a company local might want to put their name on and sponsor and support for youth and all ages, really, not just youth. And so I'd like to say we're optimistic that we can find some sponsorship to do that type of work. But at the same time, in the climate that we're in right now, it's hard to put our hand out with it as well. Scenario 3 is very basic. What this would allow us to do, we could get in there, we could provide programming, but it's not, you know, we wouldn't be changing any of the walls, we would be creating offices, the storage space would really increase. We can provide programs in there. It's definitely, you know, not ideal, but we would make it work, but our staff would be on site. So that's the major drawback to scenario 3, but at the same time, you know, depending on comfort level and where you guys would like to go with this, we're obviously we're open to whatever your thoughts are. And this is just a little bit about the program domains. Like I said, not going to get far into programming at all, but what my team has come up with is these 4 program domains. They've copied it a little bit from the 5 developmental domains that we have through the Targeting Center. And in addition to that, you know, there's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there's a lot of research that has gone into them determining that these program domains is what we're going to shoot for. And they also will work across all age groups. And these are just program examples. A lot of these are things that we already do, but essentially we're doing them all over town, here and there. And, you know, these ones were obviously at the family center as well, a lot of them. But the efficiency that will be gained by having the coordinators doing their work by the one building. Right now, we have different things stored in 4 or 5 different places around town. And so you can imagine when they go to run an event or a program, they're going to Repsol or they're going to the museum or like Kinsman, we have stuff kind of tucked everywhere. So not the most efficient, but you know, they do a great job with what they have to work with, but I can only imagine the possibilities if they actually have this functioning community center. And I think Guy wanted to talk a bit to the reserve.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Welcome back. Through the chair to council, we're planning or asking to fund this project through the Rec and Culture Operational Reserve, which we have 189,500 in currently. I just want to make sure that you're very aware of that operational reserve. We don't actually have a system to replenish it. It has been built up over quite some previous time when operational budgets were We did really well and some money was put in it, but there's not a current plan to put that in. We are asking for 107 of that to this project, but I just want to make sure you're very clear that that would be a large removal of that operational reserve. There is no system to replenish it at this point. We also plan to bring in a couple weeks the subsidy request you guys have asked us to look at for a subsidy program, and we're going to ask for to use some of that money for a pilot project for the first year of subsidy. So we're going to be very much depleting that operational reserve, and if we needed it for some other emergency or other function, we're going to be very low in what's left in that operational reserve. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knows where it's coming from, the parameters around how that reserve is being used in the past and set up. But we got to look at how we're going to replenish that operational reserve moving forward and how we look at things.
Okay, if you're done with your presentation, council, do you have questions? Councilor Wilkinson.
Through the chair, I have a few questions, if I can ask them. First, I'd like to say, Tanya, I just think that FCSS is doing such a wonderful job. It's absolutely great. But there's a few things about that building I don't know. I'm really not too familiar with it. How do people get into it if they're handicapped? Like, I just see the stairs at the front. Is there another entrance?
So they can actually drive up beside the building.
Okay.
There is handicap stalls there.
Oh, my
And
God.
so the parking is okay for a couple vehicles, and then they're up top and they.
Okay, perfect. Okay, that was one question.
Okay, I'll allow you to one and then we'll follow.
Okay, all right.
Councilor Byer.
To the chair, to Tanya. So when you talked about the gym floor, how, and having other user groups use that, what would be the anticipated like square footage of the gym? Like, would it be functional for, I don't know, tennis or soccer, or, I don't know. Building big enough for that?
Through the chair, to give you a bit of perspective, I think, have you been in the hospitality room at Expo? It's probably fairly similar to that size. I know the way that it stands now, they only have one basketball hoop, because there's windows on the other side and we have there. So there's definitely some limitations, but when we see things like senior fitness or Peloton and those kind of things, and I know the youth also did for hockey. They can choose, but they just can't help with the full on there, I don't think. But maybe pickleball, like, I think there's opportunity, but definitely lots of room for fitness.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions? Councilor Bennett.
Through the chair, Tanya, I like what you guys are doing, and I know it's a lot of money to do it, but I look also that if we do it here, that with the schools not able to let you guys in the gyms and that our gymnasium down there probably be rented a little more than what it would possibly be. You have an income coming into that or whatever. Also, the windows down there, that they got a covering on them. And I think if you take the covering off and replace it with a new one, and don't replace the windows, you probably get away with saving probably $10,000 or $20,000 on there, put an awning over it, and then, his life would still be filled it out, especially the AC going in there. That building won't be as hot as it usually was in that day. I know they put those coverings on because of the vandalism from way back when people would come down and break the windows, and they couldn't break the Lexan glass in that age, so that's why they went up in there also faded and dirty. So, I support this. I think I know which way I want to go on this, but I'll wait till the rest council has.
Guy, you had a question or concern or an answer?
Yeah, through the chair to council, I just want to clarify, when we use the word gymnasium, it's not a gymnasium.
No.
It's an active living space about the size of the Repsol hospitality room. And we will make very accessible to the community, use for other things when we're not using it. But I just want to make sure everybody, gymnasium is probably not the best word for that. It's an active living place that we can do physical activity in, but it's not a full gymnasium.
I thought the size of this room.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody's clear in what that space exactly is. It will be very much used as an active physical space, especially smaller kids. So for smaller kids, it's a gymnasium, but it's an active living space.
Okay, thank you for clarification. Any other questions? Councillor Wilkinson. You have two, and
Okay,
Councillor
glad that you're seeking sponsorship. And I wish you good wishes with that. What flooring would you put in the gym if you don't get the sponsorship? You know, the second scenario, you had a specific type of floor. I just wondered what you'd be putting in,
I think that we would probably leave the flooring that's in it for now.
which
until we
is
can
what, sort of like the old white
get- It's
tiles.
the same tile as
Okay.
is throughout the building.
Okay,
So it's
just,
an industrial tile.
okay.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, answer your hand.
That's all right.
Right.
Tanya, thank you very much for your work, and I certainly hear in your voice your passion. I know how this impacts you and that sort of thing. My question is, I guess, kind of twofold. I'm just wondering why we would have seniors programming in this facility when we already have the Pioneer Cap, and why we would have programming maybe targeted there where seniors already are. And how does this tie into the renovations we really already did at the Kinsman Shack? How do you see those spaces working together? Are they going to be different spaces? Or I know when we did the renovations there, the Boys and Girls Club is still active. So things have transpired over the last year, which none of us anticipated. So I guess, yeah, what is the complements that those two buildings are going to have, as well as from my perspective, if we're going to invest money, we probably should do this right off the bat. So, and I know that businesses are struggling, and I have a hard time having the municipality go out there and ask for funds for a municipal project when there's so many nonprofits struggling, that I think that if we're going to do this, we should be funding it ourselves and finding a way to do that if we believe this is the direction we want to go.
I mean, through the chair, Mayor, as far as the senior programming goes, we're with the Pioneer Cabin, I know in the past, we certainly partnered with them for things like bringing in guest speakers, for their soup and sandwich and that sort of thing. You know, we deliver newsletters to them and whatnot, but one thing that we're finding is that when we host classes and things outside of the Pioneer Cabin, we tend to get a different group. And, you know, I can't speak to that with numbers or statistics, but we do know that, like, through the primary care network and through some other partners, that we do belong a different group that is maybe a little more isolated.
Okay, go ahead.
I think creation of this space as Tammy and her team have kind of envisioned as a space where we can have a community programming doesn't preclude us from doing other programming and continuing to partner with other groups, not just seniors, but whether it be, you know, other early childhood, you know, people that are in that space, as well as other youth programming opportunities. I think we would still expect our group and our team to develop and pursue partnerships and relationships that would enhance programming. And that would be in addition to what we feel would be a significant opportunity to create another wonderful space and programming opportunity in our community. But that wouldn't change our approach to working with groups like the Pioneer Academy or others wherever we could.
Okay, Councillor Sorensen, you have not spoken yet tonight?
She hasn't finished answering.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yes, sorry, Mary, I didn't finish answering about the kitchen chat.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, obviously our vision has changed significantly since we started that project. And I don't know how many of you have been in it, but it turned out wonderfully. Our maintenance crew did an amazing job in there. So we're currently using it for programs. We're limited, especially with COVID, that we can only have 8 or 9 individuals in there at a time. And we have separate tables and that sort of thing. But what we envision for the Kinsman Shack is a place where we can rent it out. We've had nonprofit groups looking to use a space that is a commercial kitchen, birthday parties, that connects maybe having their meetings or whatnot. And I know that there are other facilities in town that but we would really be wide open to community, have a walk party there, partnering with the library to do events, doing our winter walk together there, in this park setting. So I see it as a space that I think we would still probably utilize in some ways for our programs or events, but also offer that up. And we haven't started offering it to the community yet because COVID, that would be required. And we don't have the staff that can just go in and sanitize every time. So, and we're using it for our own as well. So that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Did you get all the answers, Ben? Perfect.
Thank you.
Councillor Sorensen, you have not spoken yet.
Through the chair
Okay,
to council, and then I'll finish with the question to the administration. I recommend that we, I am supportive of this proposal, and I recommend that we fund for around 100,000 of this from the operational reserve, and the remaining to finish the gym from the COVID reserve. And we can call it, we can dedicate the gym to the COVID reserve or the COVID efforts that we made this year. And then I'll finish off with questions to the administration. I'm just worried that now or next year we'll receive a request to renovate the back area of this building. Is that the follow-up to this if community services needs?
When you see the back area, you mean that
So if your staff leave, is there going to be a request to renovate the area that you left?
oh.
That's a trick
I'll let
question.
you guys know.
Go ahead.
Chair, Councillor Sorensen, we don't have any immediate plans to seek funding for renovation. Certainly, we will begin to evaluate how we can best use any space that becomes available, but we don't have an immediate plan to seek funding. I don't want to suggest that will not be the case or never be the case, but that there's not a domino that's just waiting to fall there yet. We have had some very, very brief talks about the potential of maybe at least expanding to have a proper boardroom, like creating that size. But beyond that, I don't think that there's much that we would do. And initially, our thoughts would be that we would accommodate that within existing budgets if possible. But we will have no problem finding any effective uses for that space should it become available in this way.
Didn't hear your question. Councillor Byer, another question.
The chair to council and administration. I'm in support of the scenario one. Just trying to find the first one, 107. It's come from the Recreation and Cultural Reserve. Before you made a presentation, I was wondering if there are any grants available for to help out with the second part, whether it's through efficiencies. I don't know how many grants are out there, but it seemed like there were definitely things that were, in building regarding efficiencies. And I agree with the mayor. I think it's too hard to ask our local businesses for any additional support right now, especially when there's so many other nonprofits that are seeking that same support. So Councillor Sorensen, I understand you were just asking for the gym floor to be added, that 13,000.
We can dedicate the whole gym to using it.
Or okay, and the tiles. Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of scenario one and the possibility of some aspects of scenario two. But if there's any way to see any additional grants, then I think that's worthwhile to try that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Curry.
Thank you for the presentation. It looks good. I think, and I know we said we're not going to talk about too much about programming. I think my only comment on that is kind of the same thing that the mayor had said, just making sure that we're still seeing that real community partnership, and just making sure the Alberta government was pretty firm on the FNR model. And just, I think any programming that we do looking to see, are we providing that spoke that is, and that we're not doing overlap. That was the purpose for changing all that, was to make sure we're not having the inefficiencies of overlapping. And I know that we are missing lots, so most of that isn't there, but just being really,
Yeah,
right, right, there is. And my concern is, I know instantly whenever you get your own space, it's really, I have found when there's multiple organizations in the community that have their own spaces, then we start to do programming without looking outside that space, because we just have it and it's easy and we're like, hey, we can do this without looking. And that was what we saw in the past a lot. is that, and then we would have incidences where we actually, it used to be semi-common that we would have a night that there's 4 things going on with low attendance at all, and we're competing with our organizations. So that is my only concern about that space, and just always being aware that programming, I think, really does need to be with that focus of partnering with community groups and making sure we're really bringing them into that space. I fully support scenario 1. I don't think I can, definitely not out of the rec. I'd be open to discussing the taking the gymnasium out of the COVID, but not out of the rec. It does not make me comfortable to go that low, knowing that we don't have a replenishing. But I support this, and I know for some people it will be a hard understanding with the multiplex coming. I support it because I do actually think we also need space. I think we will still need that space. I think we'll still have a space issue when the multi-complex is gone. And I think that is such an amazing location that we know we can't afford to build on anytime soon without some major remediation. So I think that we'll need that space, and I think we even will need that space if down the road it looks like a different space for the sense of office space or such. But I do think it's a beautiful facility. So I support option 1 and would be open to conversations about different funding, but no more than 107 over the rec and culture.
Do you have a follow-up for her?
I actually have a follow for Councillor Meyer.
Go ahead.
Chair. We have applied for one grant through the federal government right now, and it's around 50,000. And it was really centered around accessibility and providing facility that's going to be really good for seniors. So that's one that we've applied for. We've applied through Western Financial in partnership with the Friendship Center, hoping to get funds for the gym actually. So we have a couple irons out there in the fire, but there's no way of knowing if we'll get any of them. But we're definitely working on that.
Mine's for Councillor Curry.
Go ahead.
So I think your point to being cautious of creating a space that becomes an inward focus rather than outward focus is valuable. And I think what I would suggest that the other alternative there is, I think we've seen how effective a community space can be. For example, the museum and all the groups now have a space that they can use effectively to run other programmings there. And so, just as I suggested earlier, that it would still be our expectation that the group looks for partnerships outside. I think we anticipate that partners will be looking to leverage the facility, in particular, if it's updated and renovated, and I have no doubt that it will turn out to be a very, very nice space, that we will be approached by other groups to make use of that space as well. And I think that would be another opportunity that would be created and keep those community connections that are so critical to the work that Tammy and her team do.
Guy, you have a follow-up? Yes,
I
go
just
ahead.
want to add to that.
Go ahead.
It's critical for us to look for the gaps. That's what we do. So other organizations are doing the different things. Our critical role will be to look at where the gaps are, to fill gaps and not overlap. And that's really what our focus will be on. Even though we have a structure and we're trying to cover off different key areas of programming, we're hitting different areas, but we specifically are the organization in town that's going to look for where gaps happen and try to fill those gaps.
Okay, go ahead. You have a follow-up.
That as well, through the chair, Councillor Curry. We are as strong as we are as a team because of our partners. And quite frankly, what we do, we can't do it without them. We don't have the capacity, and our strength comes from our community and the nonprofits. And a big part of what we do as well is making sure that they're supported, and but in turn they support a lot of what we do as well. So absolutely 100%. I can appreciate the sentiment because it is easy to go within and you can become a little more self-sufficient, but at the same time we wouldn't have the well-rounded, wonderful programs we have with our partners. Definitely time to keep that up.
Okay, Councillor Wilkinson, you have a third, and then Councillor Byer. There's someone else.
But I just wanted to mention that you did feel a need when you said you look for need with the armchair yoga. Many of the people who are at that aren't people who are really active in the cabin. And I would wonder if you would even get time in the cabin. I mean, they do cards, they do floor curling, they have soup, they have quilting retreats. I think it'd be very hard to set a program up in there. They're busy to start with. So I don't think it was a problem really to have that in a different location or to continue having it one. Okay, I have the question about Kinsman Park that's been answered. The heating costs, maybe Sarah, would you know what the heating costs are for that building currently? Approximately. Okay, I could get that from you maybe.
We were through budget, I am not sure. Through the chair, I know that I have the annual amount, but I don't have.
Okay, that's fine. I'll talk to you about it.
Definitely get it for you.
Yeah, just curious to know what changes.
Okay, Councillor Byer hand out and then Councillor Curry.
Through the Chair to Administration, I know when I first was elected to council, something that, was near and dear to my heart and still is, just within my own values, is that renovating something and upgrading things as they need to be rather than waiting for something completely decrepit and needs to be torn down isn't a great idea. And everything that you listed in scenario 1 are things that just update that building and give it a life that will last a long time, whether it's used for this program or that program. It's maintaining building in our community, and I appreciate the effort that you're putting into doing that.
Councillor Curry.
Two things.
Okay, go ahead.
Just to clarify with Councillor Wilkinson, didn't we already cover the cost of all the utilities when the Boys and Girls Club was in there? Okay. Yeah, so that's not that we wouldn't assume there'd be a ton more on that. That's already in our operating. Okay, just clarifying that because I thought we had. I didn't.
I just look at the savings afterwards.
Yeah, yeah. I think I would just to echo a little bit about this, but more about as us as a community. I think one of the disappointing things that we did in this is that how that facility is. Yes, we were not the renters, but it was our facility. And I think that is unfortunate that we allowed it to get to that point. And I think it was probably at no one's fault, not in, not out, but I think it is a really good, because I think you're right. And I philosophically agree with that it is our facilities. And if we maintain them, they have longer lifespans and such. So I think it's just a really good message to us to make sure that any of our other facilities that we have, they are a capital investment, such as the one across the street and such, that we should make sure that we're checking in on that more often to make sure that we don't get a facility back in that low of repair. And, and also to know that we should have been, I think, having one of our not-for-profits in there, we should have had it in a little bit better condition.
Go ahead, Guy.
Just to be fair, so for the flooring, they installed their own flooring quite a few years ago and let it degrade on the just being fair. In the gymnasium, gotta find a better word.
Multi-use space.
I liked your active living space.
The active living space is again something they created on their own. And then it just was there for a long time. So that's not necessarily all are, I'm just sharing.
Oh, for sure. And I just think it's something we need to be aware of and make sure we're keeping an eye on.
For sure. There's some other things definitely that would follow this.
Okay, I'll have my chance to speak now. I like scenario 2, but it comes with a catch. I agree with all this in the room that we got to do the building. Now, would you have enough time? What would happen if we did over 2 years? Because I'm looking at scenario 2 and I agree with the comments. We let the building get to the state and other buildings in the town that we've helped do. And I don't like the idea of depleting the other fund, but we do have money in reserve. And I know in the past, we had spoke about putting so much money aside to look after every building that the town owns. So in this building, would you have time to come back with a 2-year plan to do the whole scenario? Maybe you forgot something, and the reason I mean you forgot something, you're always thinking money. Hypothetically, if we could over 2 years and spend $100,000 for over 2 years and improve the building, it's not a waste of money, because if you're moving your offices in there, it's got to be changed, and we do need space here. So, comments about are we renovating? I'm very certain with the people moving out, people that are crowded to just use what's there. You gotta.
I'm just going to respond.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So through the chair to the deputy mayor. if we were going to do it over 2 years, we would still recommend at this point spending the initial $100,000 initially to get it in a state, because if we were to move all in, then it's going to be very difficult to do renovation and do other things. Some of those things in scenario 2, like windows, doors, the gym, can be done stage wise.
Correct.
But at this point, we would recommend all the stuff in scenario 1 to be done initially before we fully move in. I would also like to throw out at this point, if there's appetite for spending more from scenario 1 and we don't want to completely deplete that reserve, we have 2 operational reserves. How much is in the parent league one that was left? 14,000 in the parent league reserve, operational reserve. And there's an FCSS reserve with about the same amount of operational reserve that we might be able to access if we want to do a little bit more than the initial scenario, that wouldn't deplete the other ones in either one of those operational reserves. So we could bring options back on where if there's an appetite to do more, some of that funding could come.
Okay, then a follow up on it, because you say you're moving in. So if we had a plan in play to replenish the money, so if you need to do this, let's say moving forward, you have the money, and you're saying before we get comfortably in, we should spend 107,000, and going through a list that all makes sense. And then at that time, replenishing where you mentioned grants, we may be able to move forward. And then if a grant comes available, could we use that money to replenish the fund?
Yes,
that we've
very
spent?
much that would be an option for us. If we went ahead with option 1, improve that money, and then we got a whole bunch of money from our grants, we could use that additional funding to do some of the options in scenario 2.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me add to that. I think if council is of the mind to support scenario 2,
Yes.
which is the more significant renovation, and that money is going to be drawn from the same reserves regardless of whether it's now or
Correct.
in the future, I think we only lose by spreading that out over 2 years rather than it only makes sense to me that we would spread it out over a 2-year period if there was some funding pieces that we needed to wait for. In terms of doing the renovation, it is significantly easier to do it before people move in, before the space becomes active. And in particular, if some of the renovation is similar, you're talking about mobilization, demobilization again, and there are costs to that, to have a contractor come out this year and do some work, and then to have them come back and do it again next year, you lose some efficiencies there as well. Just something to keep in mind, as I suggested at the beginning of this comment, is the council's of the mind to do the whole renovation and fund it from a static funding source that exists. I don't think we gain anything by spacing it out over multiple years.
Okay, then I'll just do a follow up on that, and you guys more questions. So I agree with what you said. So we did it all now, and I'm going to say because it's cost 170, and you find a noob. So even if we say 200,000 cap budget, because you always find a noobs, and then put into play a plan to maybe pay back the fund over 2 to 3 years. So I have to agree with Mike's comment. It's easier to do it when it's not being used, as long as we put a plan in play to get the money back.
Just to be very clear, we don't have a plan to pay back that.
No, but
we don't.
But if council made up a plan to say through funding over several times that we virtually emptied out the fund, and then we put a plan in play that over 2 or 3 years, then it's not such a big hit. Okay, I opened up a Pandora's box. I mean, which one of you is first, Curry and Councilor Curry, and then the mayor?
This one's to Ms. Bittner there in the back. What are ways or other areas that we do have revenue or such that would come in that we would be able to come up? Do you have any creative ways of how we would replenish slowly that wrecking culture? Like, has it always been just from a surplus in the operating budget, or how have we? What are ways that creative?
Really, it's if you remember back a few years, we did replenish some of our reserves from when we had a larger surplus at the end of the year. So that is purely from an operational standpoint as well. Or it's building it into the budget, a certain amount each per year that would become some taxation to build those reserves up. Reserves one of those things you can only spend them once, and then you have to have that good plan to replenish them in the future. But really, it is from taxation or from a surplus from any given year that council would then wish to allocate towards that particular reserve.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. You're up next. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in support of going with scenario 2 at this point. We can talk about different reserves at the end of the day. If something happens, we have other reserves we can draw on. So if a nice plant goes down or something, we have other reserves we can draw off of. And as you stated, you're going to wait to hear back from grants. Those grants come in, then we won't need that money. So, which would be good, I think, as a part of the budgeting process. We really need to. We've had this discussion about building in reserves in each one of our departments to fund things. The airport's the same example. We don't put money aside each year, which is concerning to me. And we need to, things like the medical clinic, as we talked about, having a building infrastructure reserve so we don't end up in these situations of not maintaining our assets. Or I think the buildings section on our asset management plan is probably the worst. I think it's like a D-, maybe even an F. Yeah. And so I'm wondering, from administration's perspective, is this going to help improve that number in that facility, and what would that look like? I can't remember off the top of my head what the asset management plan said about Griffiths Park Center, but is this going to actually help that, or is this project not making enough change to actually impact the condition of that building overall? What's the condition of the roof and all these other things, which I'm a little concerned about, that all of a sudden we spend 170,000 and then all of a sudden we have to spend a whole bunch more money on some of the structural things on that building. Is that the best route for this money, or should we putting it towards a multiplex for additional space? These are very big questions.
Okay, follow up.
I'll maybe take this one, guys. That's good. Yes, so thank you, Mayor. Those are very good points. So in terms of how it affects the asset management plan, I would suggest this would have a positive effect. Those evaluations of buildings are one of the key elements is tied to their useful life. And so if this investment extends the useful life of that building from 5 years to 20 years, you see a positive impact on the piece. Notwithstanding that, if you're making a commitment of $100,000, you are making a commitment to 20 years of this building, which means there may be additional pieces that come down the road. We are not currently aware of any major structural issues or roofing issues or anything like that, but those are relevant concerns that may present themselves down the road. And so I do think that this is similar to how we talk about roads with spray patching, etc., as ways to extend the life rather than having to rehabilitate the road completely. It is the most efficient way to positively impact the overall asset picture. I would include that when you say about developing new space like the multiplex, it's infinitely cheaper to invest in this existing space than it would be to create the similar or the same new space through that type of project. And so I think those are very good points and very valid questions, but I'm confident that this activity would have a positive long-term financial benefit to the community.
Okay, Guy, and then Councilor.
Yeah, through the chair, just again, a point of clarification. We're asking for this to come out of an operational reserve at this point. There's still a rec and culture capital reserve that is in place, what, 95,000, I believe in it. That is for like Repsol and other buildings in the rec area. If we, like you mentioned, if something happened at Repsol, there's the capital reserve in place for any repairs over there. So we wouldn't be depleting a reserve that is in place for our buildings currently to make emergency repairs and stuff. So It's an operational reserve. that we're
And
asking.
maybe just one other thing to that, if I can. Often when we're talking about these types of situations, we're talking about kind of scrapping or clawing just to kind of keep our heads above water. One of the things I love about this particular project is I actually think there is a significant enhancement to service levels. This creates an opportunity for us to improve service to the community, in addition to hopefully properly maintaining and investing in an asset. And so that's not always the case. Sometimes we're just talking about making this investment just to keep the status quo in line. And so it's a real significant opportunity to add something to our community, to fill some of these critical gaps that we know exist. And I'm very comfortable that we'll look back on this, should council in their wisdom decide to support this 3 and 4 or 5 years from now, and consider this to have been a really significantly positive investment.
Okay, Councilor Bevan and then Councilor Curry.
Through the chair. I'm with the mayor. I also like the option 2 here and that. And when I heard Tanya and I speak to, he had 14,000 here, 14,000 there, for a total of 28,000. You take that off of 171, it brings down to 143. And Councilor Sorensen said take 13,000 of the COVID fund. That even brings it down to about 130 some thousand. Leaves us approximately $55,000-$60,000 in this account here. So we don't really deplete it, but if we can use that 28,000 towards it, then it's not much of a risk to go with this 171 to me. And I agree that if we take it over 2 years, it's going to be more costly. We never, everything we've kind of done over a 2 year, or 3 or 5 year period has come back to bite us just about, and it's costing us more money. And I think we don't want to see, and it's something that we anticipate, and we hope it doesn't happen, but it does happen, and we have no control over that. But right now we have control over this, to do it upright the first time around. And I say, let's do it for our community and that, and I would go with option 2.
Let's make quick. Glad I brought that up. Councilor Curry.
So after listening to all that you have to say, Mary looked it up. That facility is poor on our asset management and 39% lifespan left. And it is almost 1.5 million in asset for us. So I do think.
Something to keep in mind.
Yeah, so I do think, knowing that it is almost a $1.5 million asset of ours, at 170,000, if we can bring that lifespan from 39% to even 75%, that's huge, and I think that does really help our asset. And I do think that it is correct. If we extend it over time, it's going to cost us more money. It always ends up that way. And I do think also in timing right now, we do still have some limitations with COVID, where hopefully by next year we will not have those same limitations. So I do think when we think about having that space, having the construction done now versus taking away that active living space a year and a half from now when we're actually back in full swing, I think it is good timing. So I think, let's look at where those come from and those reserves. And I mean, if everyone is right, eventually we can just pull from a different reserve if we decided. So I will support scenario 2.
Any other concerns? Anything new?
Through the chair, I'd like to
Wilkinson,
support scenario 2, but I also, unlike the mayor, I would like you to try to solicit from some companies that are working in town, going through or establishing themselves here. Somebody might want naming rights for that building. We don't want to be calling it the Boys and Girls Club 20 years from now. It would be nice to have a company name on there if we could and help with our finances. So thank you.
GFL.
If they want to get
Yes.
naming rights, by all means.
I actually
I think
like
that would be a
this
real
better.
asset for GFL. And maybe we could even change it that.
Jean for life.
Deputy Mayor, I apologize for putting you on the spot.
I was gonna
teasing.
say, I'm not back my coat instead.
Well, these wouldn't have to be
No.
there. That'd be great.
Actually, comment, because you're right, somebody may be looking at it, and I mean, and I don't take it personally like that, but I mean, there is companies in town that are there,
We
and you might
certainly
find.
won't say no, but I do think it is, as Ken mentioned, we are sensitive to the
Oh, yes, we have
realities
to
of our
be. We have to
community, but it is in our minds.
Okay, I think, or do you have a follow-up? And then Councillor Dwyer.
I
Yes, go
just
ahead.
had a short follow-up that our group has come together with a package that we can put out to the community.
Nice.
I don't know that we're going to actually knock on doors, but, maybe put it out through social media so that if people are interested, they can come to us. And we were thinking just, a tiered premium or, silver.
For sponsorship,
platinum,
sorry.
that's really for sponsorship.
Naming
And,
rights?
Well, that would
By
be
the
a pretty
room.
significant cost. I think.
171.
Yeah.
Exactly, well,
Yeah.
200,000 just to come to the
Yeah.
meeting.
And to be really honest, we feel like the group is hard centering has a bit of nostalgia attached to it being.
Well, I like Cascade Center. I think that just sounds so good.
They're a big fish. Let's wait for the multiplex.
So actually, what you're saying, it makes sense because I agree with Grip Center, but we can use an example like in our museum where we have the shell rooms. So if you're naming rooms, that makes it more fair to smaller players,
Yeah.
And that. So those packages does make sense. So I agree with the mayor. Under these tough circumstances, it's tougher, but on the same token, if someone wants to come forward, it makes sense. Okay, Councillor Byer, do you have something new?
I do. Through the chair to council and administration, through the discussion and tax provided, I would be in support of this scenario.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
Bannister Center?
Mr. Chair, just to respond to Councillor Wilkins' comment that I don't appreciate the characterization. I said no sponsorship.
Oh,
I want to clarify that for sure. If somebody wants to sponsor, we're all for it. I just don't think we should be relying on that to fund a municipal project. But if there's somebody that wants to step forward, that'd be fantastic. Absolutely. But I just don't think that we should be relying on that to fund our projects.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way
Yeah, I
at
know,
all.
I know.
I
I just want to
mean,
clarify that.
I have a
so.
difference of opinion. I would
Yeah.
like to go after funding,
Yeah.
where you would prefer not to at this time.
Actually, a
Because
comment.
of the COVID, right? Sort of.
I like.
If they come forward, yes.
No, what I'm saying is,
Okay.
we should not be dependent
Okay, so-
on
Okay,
private sector to fund municipal
right,
projects.
exactly.
However, if there's the option to, if somebody does want to do that, that's great to the lessen taxpayers.
Actually,
We're in
Councillor
agreement.
Yeah.
Swanson had the best idea. 107, no, your idea.
That's false.
Which one was it? I'll say.
If we could, if we could, if at all possible, because it's the COVID year 2020 and we have Celebration 100, if we could fund it out of our COVID fund, and there is the town's thing to the building, and we could.
Mr. Chair, if I may suggest, administration would certainly be fully prepared to bring back the
Perfect.
funding proposal for this, taking into account the feedback that council.
Small
has.
business loan from community.
I'm not sure we're eligible. I would like to add just a few brief comments. I feel like this conversation is kind of coming to a conclusion there. It sounds like Tanya, we have enough direction on where you want to go there. I do just want to kind of make a comment of a more general nature on reserves, which that came up a lot. One of which is that we've certainly heard this message about the administration is beginning work in the backgrounds on a policy that will give us guidance, direction. And one of the things we struggle with, there's $189,000 in this operational reserve. It's hard for us to characterize that as good, bad, high, low, because we don't really have good parameters on it. I'm going to take a guess here, and I'd like Sarah to comment on this. I'm going to guess that there has been 0 withdrawals from that reserve in the 10 years that Sarah Bittner has been here with the community. 15 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Would you be comfortable to say that it is a rare occurrence?
From operational reserve, very rarely.
So a few years ago, when we had a significant surplus, wisely, I believe council began to build up these reserves, but they're not. Many of them are not things that we would consider operationally reliant on. We're not looking at that money as, "Ooh, we better have that money there." In fact, I think it would be more along the lines of when those amounts were created, it was more for consideration of projects or opportunities, just like this one that's ahead of us. That's not to say that that philosophy can't change moving forward or be better defined or may be refined and improved. But at this point, I think this is an appropriate use based on how we've prepared to build those reserves, certainly in my time here with the organization.
Okay, do you have enough information? You've probably got more than you come looking for, so good for you.
No, I appreciate it all.
Yeah, just to clarify for me, I hear support for scenario 2.
Right.
But we will bring back options on how we would potentially fund that scenario 2 fully to council. Or am I getting direction that we want to do it all out of, come back with options? Okay.
I think options, Councillor Sorensen has something, do you have any new ideas?
No, I was just following up on CO's comment about guidelines or rules of thumb for reserves. And I've been asking for that for a while. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing it at our budget day next month. Perhaps like a 90-day reserve for operations or some, just base it on the number of the days that you could operate with that reserve.
Just have one.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have anything new? Other than that, it's, I believe you have direction now. So thank you for your presentation and moving forward. Okay, information sundry, question from media. Anything, Kayla? No. Okay, and there's no in camera, so I'm looking for a very important, Mr. Mayor. I was quick on the draw. All those in favor? See, doesn't that